He transformed music videos into cinematic dance, and in doing so, helped rewrite the rules of choreography forever. Welcome to the rest of the story, where every week I bring you the dance legends behind the movement. I'm your host, Daurey, and this is my podcast, Hey Dancer. If you're loving this series, my podcast, the content in general, it goes a long way when you subscribe, follow, leave a review on Spotify or Apple, rate, comment, like all the things. It just really helps my podcast reach new people, so thank you in advance. And make sure you hang out until the outro, because I'll give a little window as to the work and prep entailed to make these episodes as truthful and vetted as possible. Okay, now, let's get into it. He was born in 1948 and raised in the low-income housing projects of the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. His mother, Rebecca, was white and of German-Jewish descent. His father, John, was black and worked in a factory. The story goes his parents lived together for 8 years, got married, then divorced a year later. From an early age, this child was energetic, expressive, and constantly moving. He was placed in a gifted program by the 4th grade thanks to his high IQ, but school never interested him. He once said, quote, "I didn't want to do schoolwork. I just had so much energy and I got bored so easily. Still do." End quote. He spent 4 years at the High School of Performing Arts in Manhattan, a prestigious institution known for producing some of the top performers in the country, but he didn't graduate. "I didn't have the grades," he later admitted. Dance became an outlet, and he finally found his solace when he began studying at the Bernice Johnson Cultural Arts Center in Queens, New York, commuting by subway and bus. The studio was known for producing major black dance talent, including future stars like Ben Vereen and Lester Wilson, whom he also took class from, by the way. There, under Johnson's guidance, he found what he needed, both encouragement and discipline. She told him once, quote, "It's out there for you. Just go and get it," end quote. And he tried, a path full of paying your dues and just barely getting by. One night, it finally happened. Broadway. In 1969, he landed a role in a new musical called Billy. He played a character named Roper. It was his Broadway debut and his only confirmed credit as a dancer on The Great White Way. But the show opened and closed on the same night. One performance. Just like that, it was over. Whatever promise it held disappeared by curtain call, and the grind resumed. He danced in Lester Wilson's company, Double Exposure, in Germany, and later he danced in Lola Falana's European nightclub act, a glamorous but grueling tour that gave him steady work and visibility. At the time, it felt like just another gig, but years later, that chapter would resurface in an unexpected way. After Europe, he joined the Alvin Ailey Dance Company, but it didn't last. Just 6 months in, it was clear he didn't quite fit the mold. Ailey would later say he was, quote, "a terrific dancer, quick, fast, kind of explosive," end quote, and also, quote, "volatile, strong-willed, and restless. Already he had that spark of creativity," end quote. Still restless, still searching, he bounced between gigs, dancing, assisting, doing whatever it took to stay in the room. Over time, that grind turned into opportunity. He began staging live acts, first for Donna Summer, creating movement for her hit disco number Love to Love You Baby in 1975, a sultry performance that marked his first big breakthrough as a choreographer. He followed that with work for Debbie Reynolds, tailoring choreography to her classic showbiz sensibility. Through these gigs, he learned how to shape movement around the artist, around the moment, around the spotlight. Then came his first big shot as a Broadway choreographer, Comin' Uptown, a 1979 musical starring Gregory Hines, an all-black adaptation of Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The show had style, spectacle, and major names behind it, but it opened to lukewarm reviews and shuttered after just 6 weeks. He fell into a total depression. But his choreography hadn't gone unnoticed. In the audience one night was Michael Bennett, the legendary creator of A Chorus Line. He'd been intrigued by the work, sensed something in the movement, a spark. So Bennett reached out, brought him into the fold, along with producer and choreographer Bob Avian, and they began building something new. The three of them would spend the next year and a half shaping it, rehearsing, reworking, obsessing. That show, Dreamgirls. Yup, he co-choreographed it with Bennett, and together they won the Tony Award for Best Choreography. The production was a smash. 6 Tonys, sold-out houses, and choreography that moved like it meant something. It was theatrical, polished, and unrelenting. It made producers take note. It made dancers push harder. And it finally gave him the credit he'd long been chasing. Bennett eventually handed him off to commercial director Bob Giraldi, who had just started dabbling in a new medium, music videos. Giraldi was set to direct Beat It from MichaelJackson and brought him in to choreograph, but Jackson didn't need convincing. See, years earlier, during that tour with Lola Falana, Jackson had been a visitor at rehearsals. He watched, asked questions like, "How do you do that move?" They stayed in touch over the years here and there, and when the time came, Jackson remembered and welcomed him in. His street-informed style was the perfect match, the grit, the rhythm, the edge. And he wasn't just the choreographer. Jackson personally asked him to play the gang leader in white. Then came Thriller. The stakes were already sky high. The song and album had been out for nearly a year, and anticipation for the video was intense. For the audition, dancers weren't just expected to move well, they had to become the character. Zombies, haunted, strange. It was about commitment, not just technique. He pulled from his network, some dancers he'd known since high school, but they still had to audition. Jackson wanted to see if they could not only dance, but transform. In rehearsal footage, he can be seen breaking things down with surgical precision. Every flick, every drop, every slouch, it had to read, it had to land. But he wasn't drilling counts, he was drilling intention. As he once said, quote, "When you dance by the numbers, you extract all emotion, you sterilize the movement, you remove the dance from its inspiration, which is the music. What I love is the capability of a body to be free in the sense of street or social dancing, and at the same time, do something that is technically hard and tremendously disciplined." End quote. He choreographed to the music, not on top of it. Every drum riff, every guitar lick was a signal. Rehearsals lasted just 1 week. Thriller wasn't just a routine, it was a short film. A phenomenon. For Beat It and Thriller, this choreographer is the recipient of Grammy, Billboard, American Video, and MTV Awards. Michael Jackson wasn't the only music icon who trusted him. He worked repeatedly with Lionel-Richie, choreographing hit videos like Running with the Night and Dancing on the Ceiling, and appearing alongside Richie on screen. Pat Benatar called him a translator, turning natural movement into choreographic gold. He staged her breakout video, Love is a Battlefield. He didn't just choreograph for these music legends, he coached them, empowered them. He choreographed Diana Ross's July 1983 Central Park concert and danced alone on stage with her during numbers like Maniac. This was the peak of his MTV reign, when choreographers were becoming stars in their own right. He directed episodes of Fame, a show based on the very high school he once attended, as well as non-dance related TV shows like A Different World and Knots Landing. He also returned to Broadway to direct and choreograph the jukebox musical Leader of the Pack, which debuted in 1985. And then came one of his most transformative assignments, helping Angela Bassett become Tina Turner. For What's Love Got to Do with It? He rehearsed with Bassett every Saturday for months, working tirelessly to shape not just the steps, but the energy, grit, and tension that defined Tina's movement. Bassett scored an Oscar nomination for it, but without him, that transformation wouldn't have landed. He choreographed so much in the world of TV and movies, like Sister Act 2 and the Mambo Kings, and The Jacksons, An American Dream, the 1992 miniseries that brought the Jackson family story to TV, and he earned his second Emmy for that project. But even as the money and accolades rolled in, he never fully left the people and places that raised him. He'd return to Bernice Johnson's studio in Queens to teach and help fundraise. His closest friends were still the ones he grew up with, the ones who saw the fire before the spotlight ever did. For most of his life, he couldn't sit still. He was chasing the next job, the next number, the next idea. Restlessness was the undercurrent, until it wasn't. Later in life, something shifted. For the first time, he allowed himself to pause, to reflect, to feel proud. His most famous routine, the choreography for Thriller, is arguably the most danced and recognizable piece by a choreographer in history. It's been performed everywhere, in films, TV shows, stadiums, competitions, social media, and flash mobs. The annual global event Thrill the World unites thousands across continents to emulate the iconic dance, and yet his name is nowhere to be found on their website. No credit, no mention. It's a stark omission, especially considering that he spent his later years fighting for choreographers to receive proper recognition, leading a campaign for the Academy to create an Oscar category for choreography in film. The irony isn't lost. It's time the world finally honored the man behind the movement. His name, Michael Peters. And now you know the rest of the story. All right, Dance Fam, I hope you loved this episode. If you were inspired, if you felt entertained, educated by this story of the great Michael Peters, do me a favor and do all the things. Subscribe, follow, and share the podcast with someone you know who would be equally inspired. Because come on, man, what a story, what a legacy. As I always say, I don't get into the personal lives of these artists, but for Michael Peters, his passing feels important to mention because he did die so young from AIDS-related complications in 1994. He just made his 46th birthday. Like just so many brilliant artists of his era, his life was cut short due to this reason, but his influence was never cut short. What he left behind clearly continues to move the world. You know, Vincent Patterson, who was the assistant choreographer on Thriller to Michael Peters, he actually went on to work with MichaelJackson for over 15 years and Madonna and everybody. He's very iconic himself. And he credits Michael Peters his stylish ease in the most famous moves of Thriller as to why the dance has been copied for decades. Quote, "People don't have to look like trained dancers to have fun with the movement," said Patterson. If we see somebody put their two hands like claws up from one side to the other, we immediately go, "Oh, Thriller," he said. I think that made for such a memorable piece of choreography, end quote. And again, that was by Vincent Patterson about Michael Peters' choreography. And it's so true, right? It's the kind of choreography that is instantaneously recognizable. Now, moving on. So I will tell you that I work very hard. I'm a one-man team, I've said before, to vet all of the data that I find with regard to these dance subjects. And the amount of misinformation online is just extraordinary. You know how the internet is. But the frustrating thing is that endless sources list many credits of Michael Peters as a dancer on Broadway that, as far as I can find, just did not exist. They say he was in The Wiz, Raisin, Pearly, but When you go to IBDB or BroadwayWorld.com, and IBDB, by the way, is the Internet Broadway database, they don't list those credits. They only list one dance credit for Michael Peters, and that is Billy. It's frustrating because I want to bring to you the most reliable information, but somebody says, oh, he was in The Wiz, and then everybody picks it up, but it's not true. Because, for example, again, IBDB or Broadway World are the major resources to hit for someone's Broadway experience. So if anybody out there, leave a comment, send me a DM at backtogreat, shoot me an email, backtogreatbiz@gmail.com. Let me know if you know something more. Maybe he was in those shows, but I will not bring to you things I cannot vet. And so often, the information online is just erroneous, and I will only bring to you things that I am 100% positive are true. As I often say, these are not meant to be, a 90-minute, 2-hour documentary. It's not meant to be a full biography by any means. It is a dance-centered, a dance-focused highlight reel, if you will, retrospective on a dance giant. And it's still funny to me that I often repeat this and I still get comments from people saying, oh, you forgot this, you forgot that. Never do I even intimate that these are a full biography. But one part that is very important to me in these people's stories is the early part, the childhood, the years of training, the foundation. And I'll tell you, even for like the most famous dancers of all time, like recent episodes even on Vera Ellen, Carol Haney, it's very difficult to find because there aren't interviews with these people, unless you're like a huge famous actor, actress in the movies, whatever, in more recent times. But go and try to find on Google, something about, these dance icons from yesteryear. And yesteryear could literally be the 80s and 90s. I'm not even talking about, the 30s or 50s or something. There's not one-on-one interviews really to be located. And I was very proud of myself. I didn't say with my words, although I put it as a text overlay and in the episode description for Carol Haney. I got an exclusive. Through my own digging, I found her high school yearbook and literally discovered pictures of her as a teenager that have never been seen before online. I was so proud of myself. I kept digging, and because again, I really want to find stuff from their childhood to bring to you, especially visually, And with Carol Haney, I found her high school yearbook, and in it was her senior portrait and her class picture, and the fact that she was voted most likely to succeed and best dancer, and her singing in the choir. Wow. Like, that should be on the news. I'm very proud that I found this. But anyway, with Michael Peters, again, I couldn't find like anything from his childhood, very little bit about his training, except for, of course, that he went to the Performing Arts High School in Manhattan. That was known. But guess what? I found this one footnote. It was on IMDb, and it was an article, but there was no link to it. You couldn't click on it, but it had 3 different sources for him on IMDb that were articles. And this one seemed to be an old article that was an interview with him, and I was shocked, and I tried to do all the things. I looked up the 2 writers of the piece. I looked up the title. I tried to do all the sort of keywords. I couldn't find it. And then what I did find was on eBay, they had this article. Okay, so it was from People magazine, back then called People Weekly. And on eBay, I found the actual magazine. I could have bought it, but I didn't want to spend that time to have it arrive, because I'm on a sort of schedule here to get these episodes out. And on eBay, they had a couple of pictures of different pages from this particular week, all the way back in 1984. And I saw the table of contents, and I got the page number for the article with Michael Peters, okay? And the date of the People Weekly, but not the actual article. That was not shown on eBay. So I literally did so much crazy digging. I finally got hold of the history department at the Los Angeles Public Library in downtown. Shout out to Peter, who helped me out there. He found, with me giving him the date of the magazine, the volume, and the actual page number of the article, which is what they needed, he was able to consult somebody and get it for me on microfilm. and then emailed to me the article. And I am so excited by that because it is the only vetted, truthful source that exists that is an article, an interview with Michael Peters that gives a little bit of a backstory as to his youth. That really did inform a lot of this script. I just say this to tell you that it is crucially important to me to bring to you as much of the truth as possible, and I don't want to mention things unless I can really cross-reference. I got also lucky. I found a YouTube dedicated to Michael Jackson's album Thriller, and this was an interview with Lorraine Fields, who happened to be one of the main dancers on Thriller. And that is how I learned that she went to school with Michael Peters at the Performing Arts High School in Manhattan, and he had friends going back all the way to that time, and he brought them in to audition for Thriller. She painted the picture, what it was like auditioning, the rehearsal, and that informed that part of my script, which again, really not possible to find online just by Googling or going to AI, which is always wrong, by the way. So all these little things begin to dictate what I can tell you that I'm certain is true. Actually, it was Lorraine Fields who said in an interview that Michael Peters worked in Lester Wilson's company in Germany called Double Exposure. And I was like, what? Oh my God. Like, that information is nowhere online. And so that informed my script. So while my podcast, The Rest of the Story series, is just a dance-centered retrospective, I am proud to say that with many of these episodes, I am revealing information dance-wise with regard to these giants that many times have never been talked about before, released, exposed, and all of the above. And I'm very, very proud of that. So if you appreciate the work I'm putting into it, again, it goes a long way when you subscribe and tell your peeps about it. I am in no way sharing any of this from a self-boasting perspective. I just take pride in my work, and it's these dance heroes are, very important to my heart. I kind of, in my own way, fall in love with them every single week. Their legacy is something that I take very seriously. And that's all I got for this week. If you have any recommendations on future dance icons, giants, legends, let me know in the comments. Until next time.